needed was a story.
As Thomas said, it's initially set in 1972, and it doesn't follow the story of a hero or anything. The protagonist is just your average guy, with a red jumpsuit and a mustache.
And it's about Joe, a janitor in a huge governmental office building.
One day at work, he's told by his boss to go to the building's basement. But this is all surrounding very mysterious circumstances.
He's taken over the job from...
This is Bob Kiser. You're listening to WGHC LP 98.3 FM Chicago. Please make a donation on the front page of our website, WGHCradio.org.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
We all make choices about alcohol. Kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations, and they want honest answers in everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path, because when you talk, they hear you. Learn more at underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
And hello, Chicago. You're listening to Perfect Detours on WGHC 98.3 FM. I am Bob Kiser, and I am your host. It's good to be back. It's been quite a couple of weeks that we haven't been on the air, so but we're back now, and looking forward to exploring those perfect detours in our lives. So if you are listening for the first time, welcome. What is this show? What do we do? So, well, each week we explore how to turn those perfectly imperfect moments into living a life beyond our wildest dreams. So welcome. We're glad you're here. If you're back for the 18th, 20th, 200th time, welcome back, and we're glad that you're here and look forward to continuing the conversation on what it means to take those perfect detours in our life. And the question really becomes, how would your life be different if you saw everything as pointing you towards becoming the perfect you? That what if the universe was actually conspiring for you instead of against you, as most of us have that story in our heads. So anyway, as I said, it's so good to be back, and I'm sitting in the studio today with the one and the only Skip Sams. Hi, Skip. How are you?
Hi, Bob. I'm super duper dandy dapper.
It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. It's good to have you back in here.
Yeah, and just as a side note, everyone, I forgot to turn off my phone. Number one, no, when you go on the radio. But guess who just texted me?
Who?
Mr. Andre Wolf.
I was going to say, after you said that, I was like, is that Andre?
It's Andre. So, hi, Andre, if you're listening. Hello. Yes, as I said, it's been a while since I've been in the studio. It's good to be back. Some new things happening here I can see. Some new equipment. But the same good old soul that is here, and intention of just carrying the people's voice to Chicago. And by the way, what a gorgeous day outside.
It is. That it is. Definitely.
No offense, everyone. I really didn't want to come in and do the show. I wanted to stay outside. But now that I'm here and I'm seeing Skip, I'm glad I'm here.
Yay!
So, Skip, tell me one thing that's happened in your life since we last saw each other.
I'm back in the classroom with students, sixth graders.
Wow.
I'm back in the classroom with sixth graders at Evanston Schools.
And how is that? I asked.
It's really weird because I am not teaching. Like normally I would be teaching, but I am there as a air quotes student supervisor. So I am in a room of a pod of 9 kids, and they are on their pads with their teachers because the teachers are not, like the homeroom teacher is for a medical reason is not back in school. So they are on their pads, and so there's like this dynamic of they're with their teachers, so they can't. It's not like let's F with the sub and like take advantage of the sub, because they can't do that.
Right.
So I'm in there for several periods, and then there are teachers that are there. They do not have home rooms and desks. They have carts, and they take their stuff and move room to room. So, and then they have half the kids, when there's a teacher in the room, half their kids are home, and then they're in the room with the pod. So they have up on the screen, they have all the kids that are home on Zoom on the white screen. So they talk, and then you hear them over the speaker. It's very interesting. The cool thing is, I get to write and read all day. They don't care what I do. I'm not teaching, so as long as I got my eyes on the kids, so I'm sitting there and I got my iPad with the keyboard, and I'm just typing away all day. And
what a kind of cool opportunity for you.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's odd, but it's the new norm. It's a taste of the new norm. Here's a cool thing though that will never go away. These kids are going to have these pads forever now.
Yeah.
Because when they're in the classroom, the teacher can see all of their screens. So if they are not following along, she says, Jimmy, you're not on the right screen. Or Jimmy, you're not following along. Is there something that you need? And if they are working on a math problem, she can see the work they're doing and say, hey, you're having a problem on this. So it's we've never had that. That's right? You know,
cool.
we could like be looking at, Playgirl magazines and our
we could be. I mean, we would never do that. But
never have done that. No.
Yes.
I went to a Christian school, so no, I wouldn't have done
that. Wow. Okay. So that's a lot. Yeah. To your point, new technology, especially from when we were in school, but even just from a year ago, like students have learned a new way to be with their teachers, and the teachers have had to learn. It's incredible.
And the way they've adapted that so quickly, that's really awesome that the teachers can. It's really a way not only of just like, is the kid following along, but is the kid able to follow along? Is the kid keeping up?
Yeah. Wow. And well, I also want to kind of open this up to everyone listening too. You can join in the conversation, by the way. So if you are interested in joining the conversation, please call in at 773-942-7167. Again,
go ahead.
773-942-7167.
I'm so proud of you. You didn't ask me what the number was, and neither of us, because I don't have it memorized either.
It's called
We weren't scrambling for our phones. Good job.
We've had a really calm day today. That's been great.
Good job.
And I was running late, so
Yeah, we're smoothing right back. Well, you know what? We have equipment that works too.
We have equipment and no guests.
No guest.
I love the guests, but it always adds a different layer. So it's just you and I talking. So I thought
what's new with you?
It's so interesting. You're talking about being at, in the classroom. So, working at UIC, we all have, in the medical school, have gotten our vaccinations, and the students have got their vaccinations. And so we're now starting to look at what does it look like to come back in person? And I think to your point, what has worked and what do we want to keep that we never thought we could do before? Because our story in our head was we could never work from home. We could never do things virtually. And all of a sudden we have been doing things virtually. So it's quite interesting. And also in healthcare, that majority of the communication now is through telehealth, virtual means. So it's quite interesting how medical school is changing, and also just being a part of that process, how my job is changing. So that's the major thing. And I don't believe have I been to the studio since I turned 50? I believe I have. I don't remember. I don't know. Anyway, I turned 50.
I think you have.
I feel like I did.
Yeah.
But I'm still 50. So, 50 in some days. 50 in a month or two. So.
Yeah. Welcome to the fifth dimension.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
It's been good so far. Except for I got in the mail, what is that called? The double AARP.
AARP. Oh my God, I love it. It's amazing. You got to
Really?
fill it out and join it. It's $16 a year. And like, if you ever rent a car, it's like, and you go to a certain one that we're not advertising, but you go to a certain
We'll
one,
talk about it after. Yeah.
and it begins with a B, and it's for those of you on a budget.
Okay.
But it's 25% off automatically.
Okay.
And if they have it, a free upgrade.
Awesome.
So I got that, and like it paid for itself in like immediately.
Okay. I've become a believer.
And there's all kinds of benefits that come with that.
Yeah, I looked at it. I was like,
And then they send this magazine every month, and it's really cool because the people on the front of this magazine you don't associate with AARP.
oh,
Yeah,
they're young like us.
Yeah, it's like you get a magazine one month, and it's Jennifer Aniston.
Oh, well,
You know,
but
and
she's
it's her story about turning,
old.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, turning old.
No, or how they're keeping young.
And it's so funny too because we're about ready to start the show on forgiveness, and I'm thinking maybe I should just accept being 50 instead of fighting it. And I think part of forgiveness
50 was fun.
Yeah.
54 is not so fun.
50's not been. I've just been in Chicago. I haven't gotten to travel because I had all these plans. Like when I turn 50, I'm gonna go scuba diving all over the
Well,
world.
you still can. That's when I did my 5-week trip to Europe. For myself, I saved up for years, and I went to Europe for 5 weeks by myself.
Where did you go in Europe?
Norway, Netherlands, Germany, Spain. I know I'm missing one. France. Yeah, I spent a week in each, and each one I spent with a friend.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get over and travel some more there. Of course, obviously, when things change a little bit. But
yeah, it's cool because I had some of like my college friend that he goes to Florida, takes his family every year, and I see them every once in a while. But we've known each other now 35 years.
Exactly.
And they were always like, Skip, you got to come to Norway. We come to the States all the time. You got to come to Norway. You got to come to Norway. So I finally did. I fell in love with it.
Right.
And all my friends were, I went to Amsterdam, stayed with a professor there, an old professor. He stayed on the canal on his houseboat.
Oh, come
half
on.
the time. Half the
That's
time.
awesome.
And but it was they were like, what do you want to see? What do you want to see? And I'm like, I just want to hang out with you. I just want to see how you live.
Right.
Do what you do. Take me to your favorite restaurant. Show me, who do you have coffee with? Just that. I just want to see how you live.
How do you people live? I want to see.
Because I have, you think about your friends, and I think about them all the time. I want to, and I can't even really imagine what their environment's like.
Right.
So just going to see it now, when I talk to them, I can imagine. Like, it's not imagine. I can see where they are.
Right. Well, also, I mean,
and I become Facebook friends with their friends. So that's been kind of cool too.
You've spread the web.
Yeah.
On the webs, the interwebs. That's cool. Wow. Yeah, my goal is to get back to doing some more scuba diving. A friend of mine was on Facebook, was posting pictures of his scuba dive trip, and I'm like, I need to get going on that. So I think the fish are okay from COVID. I don't think the fish have COVID, so I don't think so.
That's caviar, and fish have caviar. They don't have COVID.
It's so funny. Oh my gosh! So I was watching I on YouTube. They have these just like serene live feeds where they have pictures and nice music. And there was one feed on great white sharks. And had all the serene music and then great white sharks. I'm like, feels like these two don't go together. But they didn't show, like, they're beautiful animals when they're like going through the water. But I was just like, I felt this little tension in me. I was listening to this beautiful music. I was like, and that shark could just eat me. So, yeah.
Where do you want to go? That's I'm afraid to get in swimming pools still sometimes because I saw Jaws when I was like 8 years old.
So I actually went diving with sharks in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
I was on this dive trip, and there's supposed to be like like 15 or 16 of us, and there was only 3 of us, myself and this couple. And we did our first dive, and we saw like one shark way out in the distance. And then they asked, the dive master said, "Hey, since it's just the 3 of you, do you want to go do some shark diving?" And I was like, "Well, never done it. I'll do anything once." And sure. But the point of my story with what you just said is that when I'm on top of the boat and the dive master was giving me instructions on diving with the sharks, I felt like the minute I jumped in the ocean, there were going to be sharks all around me, and I always forget how big the ocean is. So you jump in, and there's like no fish around you. It's huge. So point is, if I was getting in a swimming pool, I would think of that. So probably because there won't be sharks in there. Yeah, probably not. Anyway, it was beautiful. And the sharks were Bahama reef tip sharks. And at this particular place, they've been feeding them for like 25 years. So the sharks think of you as providing the food, not as the food.
Oh.
And the minute they see you don't have any food, they're like done. Like probably like 30 seconds. They're like, "Okay, we're done. We're out of here." So they really didn't like us, I don't think so. But it was cool. They're beautiful creatures. Beautiful. So
I wouldn't want to run out of food. I just wouldn't trust that. Would not trust that. You are braver than I.
Well, we didn't have food that day. They feed them on, I think it was Thursdays and Saturdays or something like that, or Wednesdays and Saturdays, and it was a Friday. So, but they did know the sound of the boat, and they knew, when we jumped in the water that, they came towards us. And they kind of nudged us a little bit. Like the dive master's like, "Do not, poke them. They're just checking to see if you have food." And he was right. They just left. So, yeah. So, yep, that was it. Anyway, I don't know how we got there.
You could go now. You don't have to. I mean, you got your vaccine, and you could go now. I mean, you could probably get cheap airline rates and everything.
Yeah, I just need to make the plans and go.
Does your boyfriend have?
So he
vaccinated?
No, not yet.
I'm a freaking teacher, and I cannot get a vaccine. It's driving me nuts.
Yeah, that's a little crazy. But now, supposedly, people are going to be vaccinated by the end of May, which is that timeline.
Yeah, well, this one that's going to open in United Center this week, I should be able to get in line. But
oh, really?
Yeah, I think it opens up to make reservations for people in my group. Right now, it's 65 and over are making reservations, and I've been checking like all the time, and they have not like closed that down.
Yeah.
So
that second shot, I got the Pfizer. Ooh, the second shot. Ooh, it was quite interesting. So I got the shot at like 11:45 a.m.
Yeah.
And the next morning at 4:30 a.m., I woke up, chills, had a headache, nausea. Yeah, it was quite a fun day the next day. But since then, I've had no side effects, so it's been good.
Wow. I'm hoping for the Johnson & Johnson. I'll be happy with that. Just once, get it over with, be done.
Done, yeah.
Done.
Yeah. The actual injection itself was not bad. Actually,
what?
The actual injections were not bad.
Yeah.
They didn't hurt. I mean, they hurt like 3 or 4 hours after.
Yeah.
But not when I got the injections. Do you mind injections?
No.
Yeah. I'm not kind
Sometimes they trigger me. Actually, that's not true. Injections don't trigger me.
Yeah.
Drawing blood triggers me, though.
That makes sense. I was going to say something else too. Oh, this is interesting. I cannot, like injections behind me, I can't do like in my butt.
No.
Cannot do it. Anywhere, like you can do it on my legs, you can do it on my arms, wherever. But when I was 6 or 7, I was in the hospital and they had to give me a shot, and I would not let them give me the shot. This nurse literally sat on me, and they give me a shot in my butt. So since then, I'm like, no way, no shots. So
you can, but you won't.
Someone has to sit on me. Like I was at the doctor's one time, and they were like, they had me stand up, and they were going to do a shot, and I almost like fainted. And I don't faint at anything.
Somebody has to sit on you.
Yeah. Well, I usually get them in my. That's why I do my shoulder exercises so that I can get shots in my deltoids. So. Deltoids.
Sorry, that's not. I was going somewhere else, but
skip Sam's. Skip Sam's.
This is family radio.
Yes, it is. So we're gonna take
Actually, why are we saying it's family radio? No, it's not.
It's not.
No, well, it's
what the. Great.
Sure, we are. Why not? Why not?
We're family. We are family.
We are family. Oh, I should have that on.
Oh.
Yep.
Who? I don't lost
who?
that. Who? What? When? Why? How? Okay. What is that?
That was me playing with the new equipment.
New equipment?
And accidentally.
Went do. Okay. So we're going to take a short break. And then when we come back, I want to talk about forgiveness. I want to talk about what it means to forgive and all that kind of good stuff. And I want to have a conversation with you. So please call in. The number here is 773-942-7167. We're going to be talking about this whole forgiveness thing and why should we forgive and what is it about? I hear so many people talking about forgiveness. There's so many books about it. So I thought, well, maybe that's something we should talk about. So again, we'll take a short break and we'll be back. But if you want to call in, it's 773-942-7167. And you're listening to Perfect Detours on WGHC 98.3 FM Chicago. We'll be right back.
This is Bob Kiser. You're listening to WGHC 98.3 FM Chicago. Listen to our live stream at WGHCradio.org and click on the Listen Live tab at WGHCradio.org.
With a My Social Security account, you can request a replacement Social Security card, estimate your benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
This is Skip Sams. You are listening to WGHC LP 98.3 FM Chicago. Change happens here. We are a low-power station, and it's our mission to empower those with small voices to be heard loudly. If you are listening and looking for encouragement in the Chicago North Side communities, please sign up for our email list on our website at WGHCradio.org.
You're listening to WGHC LP 98.3 FM Chicago. Listen to our live stream at WGHCradio.org and click on the Listen Live tab. If you would like to sponsor our station, please send an email to Program Director at WGHCradio.org. You can also make a donation on our website, WGHCradio.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to Perfect Detours on WGHC. And as I said before break, I want to talk about forgiveness. So people who've listened before, you know my story to a small amount. I am a coach, a mediator. I work a lot with conflict resolution. And I'm also a sober person in recovery. And so my journey, I've done a lot of quote-unquote self-help stuff, therapy, etc. And as a coach, I work with people, to help them gain things in their life that they want to achieve, etc. And in the last probably 2 or 3 months, I've been thinking to myself, what is it that I really want to be doing? Why am I here on this planet? And again, I love everything that I do. But I also have been thinking, I think there is a higher reason, a higher purpose. And I've really been thinking about this topic of forgiveness. And I have had a couple of major items in my life that I feel like I have achieved forgiveness. And I think they've changed my life as in how I view the world and how I move through the world and deal with people in general. So I want to take the next couple weeks, actually probably next 8 weeks, to look at this and to have people in and get their perspectives on it. People who are from religion, people who are atheists. I just want to hear what people have to say about this whole topic, because again, there's all these books about it, but I also feel like I'm not sure all of us are getting the idea of what forgiveness is. In fact, I'm not even sure I know what forgiveness is. I think I do, but I know that in forgiveness, there's this idea that when you do it, you find a peace, a certain tranquility, a certain groundedness. That sounds pretty cool to me. So that's what I want to explore. anyone who's listened to the show before knows that I'm really into definitions. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So this week I looked up what is the definition of forgive or forgiveness, but to forgive. And the first one is to cease to feel resentment against, to pardon, forgive one's enemies. I'm going to stop right there because my life has been filled with resentments. In fact, the early part of my life, I think I was fueled on resentments against my dad, against instructors, teachers, against friends. So my interest is already peaked. And I will say that with my resentments, that actually I feel like I had some comfort in my resentments. So this is interesting. So the idea of giving up my resentments, what does that mean? Who will I be without my resentments? So that's interesting. And the second definition is to forgive an insult. And that's interesting because an insult to me, well, I'm just interested. An insult of verbal kind, of what insult on my personality. What do we mean there? So I decided to go even further because I hear forgiveness used a lot with religion. Different religious sects have forgiveness in their teachings, and the Bible has plenty to say about forgiveness. There's a lot in there. The Greek word translated as forgive in the New Testament, aphiemi, is what they say it means to remit to debt, to leave something or someone alone, to allow an action, again, to leave, to send away, to desert or abandon, and even to divorce. So I think what I'm getting from all of this is that forgiveness might have something to do with letting go, sending away the feelings that we have and our resentments. Okay, interesting. I think when I first started working with forgiveness, I had the feeling that in order to forgive, I had to forget. And I had to pretend things didn't happen that happened. In my life, I've had people do some not nice things to me, as I think we all have. And it was really hard for me to hear people say, well, but you need to forgive that person. And what I heard was, you need to forget what they did and pretend everything's okay. And that's what I pretended to do. I tried to do that. I think that is one of the reasons that my addiction took off so heartedly, and I was so successful at my addiction, being an addicted person, was that I think this pretending, and I've heard, act as if, and in forgiveness, I'm always concerned when someone says act as if, or someone starts talking about forgiveness as in you should forgive and you should almost, quote unquote, forget. A lot of people out there know by this time it's not about forgetting, but just putting out there that those of us that are on this process of forgiveness, that if that is in our wheelhouse of our thoughts, that I don't think that is true. I don't think we have to forget. So what is it that we're going to be doing then? I think that in my life, it's not about forgetting, but it's rather transforming the story I have in my head. My forgiveness always lies around what wrong has been done to me. And in that wrong is a story in my head. And the people that I could not forgive in my life, I would keep the story alive and well. I spent a lot of time on it. I was not a quitter. I figured out the reasons why they had their crimes were so horrible, how they had affected me, and then I made sure that they were punished by not giving my love to some of my family members, or rejecting them as humans, or even punishing myself in some instances. So this story is what I think our exploration will be mostly about, is how do we transform this story? So it's not about changing the facts. The facts are the facts. What happened, happened. But I was invited by a mentor to maybe change the story a little bit. I've also noticed that when I don't forgive, I'm in black and white. It's either good or bad. And this whole gray, it was really hard for me, especially as a younger person, to see someone who had done something quote unquote bad to me and yet see redeeming qualities and see that maybe they were whole humans. So in my experience of forgiveness, it's changing the story and seeing the person, place, or thing as a whole, as complete. I'm trying to get the whole story about them. Just to give a little background about my experience with forgiveness and where I'm coming from. And this is by no means the only places to get information about forgiveness. In fact, I'm hoping that as we continue on this conversation, to people with different perspectives about it. So, but again, where am I coming from? So, as Skip and I talk about a fair amount on this show, is that, I am in recovery. I'm a sober person. So, and my perspective of forgiveness comes from 12 steps. So, not that I am going to say that you should do the 12 steps at all. It's my process, but to let you know, that's kind of the lens, one of the lenses that I'll be talking about forgiveness through. Also, therapy. I've had a lot of therapy, a lot of therapy. And that has been a place where I was given the opportunity and the safety to look at the situations I'd been in, to examine them from different angles, and then to come up with new stories about, or new perspectives. So the other two things that I have done in my past is Course in Miracles and Byron Katie. And those are two... Byron Katie, who I adore. I talk about her all the time. And I'll talk about her a little bit later. But as you're listening to this as I'm talking, you can go, oh, I get where Bob's coming from. That's his lens. And everything is through a lens. Everything is through your lens, my lens. So we're just kind of sharing what we're seeing. So I, by no means, I'm saying this is all there is, but just letting you know kind of what I'm talking about, where it's coming from. So I want to share one of the greatest journeys I took with forgiveness. But before I do that, as we're talking about forgiveness, I guess I have a question for everyone is, why the hell should we forgive? I mean, why should I forgive those horrible things that were done to me? Some instances, I believe that by me not forgiving and / not forgetting, that I protected myself so that those things will not happen again. I feel like in some instances with people that I have had my walls up, and that's been a good thing. It has kept me from being abused again, etc. It also, though, has cut me off from people and cut me off from relationships and kept me from connecting with people. So that was one of my experiences of why I need to kind of look at forgiveness for myself. And again, one of the results was my addiction, which is the ultimate severing of ties between anybody. So Buddha says that holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else, and you are the one who gets burned. And that has been my experience. As I said, I want to punish people. I love that. Let me figure out your crimes and let me figure out how to punish you, as in I will take my love away from you, I will not connect with you, etc. But again, after all these years, I can see that actually I was the one who was getting hurt the most. So the other thing is that when we don't forgive the person, place, or thing, that story about them, it lives rent-free in our head. I can't even tell you the amount of arguments I've had in my apartment with people. And I live alone. These people were not even present, and I've had arguments with them. So imagine, I don't even know, Skip, how much time I have spent on resentments and dealing with them. So if I had all
the arguments, and then you get there and you see them, and it's like, hi, and everything's okay.
Right. Expectations are premeditated resentments. Yes, that's exactly it. But all the time that I could have actually been doing things I like doing. I'm complaining I don't have enough time, but yet I spend so much time in my head sometimes with people that have quote unquote wronged me, etc. So why forgive? I think actually I'm going to get the gift of time back, and that has been my experience. Can
I share? Forgiveness. Forgiveness is for giving me peace.
Say that one more time.
Forgiveness is for giving me peace.
I love that. Yes. Amen. Yeah, they said that forgiveness is for you, not necessarily for the other person, but for you. So that's an interesting thought. And with that being, I don't know, what is the word I want to use when I'm so enthralled by my thoughts, my stories? I can't connect to whatever higher power is to you, God, universe, just being present in nature, even being present today. If I have resentment in my head, this is the best time for me to be in my head. And then I'll walk, 5 or 6 blocks and not know what I saw, got to enjoy the sun. So again, I think we get the gift of time and the gift of connecting with this wonderful world. So the other thing that happened for me is, and this was a side effect I was not even expecting, was that as I started to forgive others and myself, which is another topic we'll talk about, but when I started forgiving other people, I started to feel less threatened about the world I lived in. And as I said before, I had my walls up. Connecting with me was very hard for people. And as I started to forgive, I realized the world was not as scary and as mean as I thought it was. And I had more power than I thought I did. And that actually I have the tools to have healthy relationships with people. I couldn't have healthy relationships before. So I had to have my walls up and etc. So I think part of forgiveness is, let me phrase it, part of healthy relationships is learning how to forgive. So those are my thoughts. Skip, what are you thinking over there? Because I've just been talking. I've been talking, saying a lot of stuff.
I'm just listening intently, and my brain is like, there's a lot of stuff going on, but I'm not going to interject except for that one.
I love it.
But I mean, there's so many things, because we pretty much have the same journey as far as the 12 steps, Course in Miracles, Byron Katie, amazing. Eckhart Tolle, there's just,
right.
We're pretty much the same, follow the same spiritual teachers and literature and so forth. But there's a huge thing for me as far as forgiveness and with relationships was I was dating a guy. It was like a 6-month, all in, right? And he relapsed, and my heart just burst open, right?
Yeah.
And as far as forgiveness for him, I was so mad at him, and I went to a meeting once, and at the Burning Desire at the end, they were like, does anybody have a burning desire? I was like, yeah, I want to mentally and emotionally abuse this guy. I just want to make him feel like he's making me feel. And people, several people came up afterwards, but one guy in particular was, isn't it funny how we as addicts want to get mad at other addicts for using? And that was just like this light bulb. And at that time is when, I've read A Course in Miracles. I tried to several times before, and it just, it's written so beautifully, and it's very beautiful piece of literature, but I wasn't in the right frame of mind. But at this time, it just, I'd read it, and wow, everything just spoke to me. And one of the biggest lessons as far as me forgiving him, the one who broke my heart, is when, I saw him as my brother.
Exactly.
Not as my lover, not as my boyfriend, not as anything, but I saw him as my brother, meaning, and then I saw him as myself. You got to see him as myself. So
yes.
What am I not forgiving him for? It's really everything that I've done is just being reflected. And so I have to forgive myself. And once I forgive myself, then it's like, okay, I can forgive them.
Interesting. Yeah,
doing the work in myself.
I would say seeing my brother or just a fellow human. So
yes,
that's how I put it. Yeah,
I was just using their language.
No, I love it. No, I love it because in the next 8 weeks I want people to use the language they use because how forgiveness. I think it's until you experience it, and I think I've experienced. It's talking about it's like love. What is love? And anyway, I want to take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to share a story with you that I've shared in little bits and pieces here, but I think that here it will serve the purpose well. So let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. And again, you're listening to Perfect Detours on WGHC 8.3 FM.
This is Bob Kiser. You're listening to WGHC 98.3 FM Chicago. Listen to our live stream at WGHCradio.org and click on the Listen Live tab on WGHCradio.org.
With a My Social Security account, you can request a replacement Social Security card, estimate your benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
This is Skip Sams. You are listening to WGHC LP 98.3 FM Chicago. Change happens here. We are a low-power station, and it's our mission to empower those with small voices to be heard loudly. If you are listening and looking for encouragement in the Chicago North Side communities, please sign up for our email list on our website at WGHCradio.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to Perfect Detours on WGHC 98.3 FM Chicago. I am Bob Kiser. I'm your host. Welcome back. And we're talking about forgiveness. And in the spirit of sharing, and that over the next 8 episodes that we are going to be sharing with each other our experiences of forgiveness, I'm going to jump in and start off with one of my major ones. And so I'm adopted, and I was adopted when I was 15. But I lived with my biological father up to that point, and definitely knew him and definitely had interactions with him. And my father was an active alcoholic, and my earliest memories of him was when I was 3, and he was like my best buddy. Like, we were buddies. We hung out. It was me and my dad. Earlier, so this is, my memories start around, it's weird that I know this, but around June or July of when I was 3. But that February before, my mother had passed away from leukemia, and so my father was left with me and my half sister, which was we shared the same mother. And as I said, he was an active alcoholic, so we had many nights of craziness, and that's what I knew as a 3-year-old. Often he would pass out on the couch, having drunk all day, and I would walk through the apartment building looking for friends. As a side note, I actually knocked on this couple's door, George and Martha Kiser, and I started hanging out with them when my father was, passed out or doing something else. So I spent a lot of time between my father and George and Martha, because Martha became my babysitter, and then as my dad's disease progressed, Martha and George took care of me. I started staying with them more, and then when I was 15, they adopted me. The experience with my father is very interesting because it's so interesting because I'm popping back into my memories before I went through some forgiveness with him, so I'm trying to paint that picture. It's not really how I view him today, so this is quite interesting, so thank you for this opportunity. But the story in my head was that he didn't care anything about me, and that I was just this nuisance to him. I would only see him on the weekends, I would only see him on the weekends. I would stay with George and Martha during the week, and on those weekends, he would be drinking. We might go do some things here and there, but also my dad, because of his disease, didn't keep jobs very often. He would lose them. It just very chaotic, and it seemed like he just was more. He just liked the idea of me being at George and Martha's. That's the story I had in my head. When I was a kid, I started theater, and he actually would take me to some of the rehearsals, but I was very embarrassed by him. And the reason was that I would be on stage. I was like probably 7, 8, 9, 10, and community players. And he would be up in the audience, and he would be passed out or drunk or whatever. And people in the theater were talking about him. And I heard, and I felt very embarrassed. And I was like, how could he do this to me? So fast forward, and by the time I was 13, 14, 15, I would see him, but it was getting less and less. And the other thing I'll share is that he again, because of his disease, had hard times with finances, etc. And George and Martha were they are not addicts. I don't think they've ever drank alcohol. I think George was drunk one time and said he would never do it again. So I had a very stable life there. And when I was 15, they asked my father if they could adopt me. And my father said yes and signed the papers, and I was adopted. And I was so angry. I was so angry at him. How could he just give me up? And again, the more and more I spent time with him, all the time he was drunk. So when I was just out of college, and actually out of college and a little bit further into adulthood, I cut off relationships with him. I was like, I can't deal with him. He would make plans with me and not show up. I was like, he doesn't care about me. And the last time I saw him, he had a heart attack and was in the hospital. I rushed there, and at that time I was performing and stuff like that. And I walked in. I've not seen this man in years. I walk in, and he says to the nurses, "Oh, there's my son. He performs with Kenny Rogers." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? That's how he greets me? How dare he do this?" And I think as you're probably hearing this story, you can hear the lens I'm watching him through, and I'm hearing him through, is that everything he does is going to point towards he doesn't care about me, and he's not present with me, he doesn't ask me how I'm doing, etc. So long story short, I hated this man. I hated him. And I went ahead with my life, and as I've said, I jumped into the wonderful world of alcohol and drugs. Being facetious there. I had quite a run, and ended up where I was ready to kill myself, and because I could not figure out how to drink and use correctly. Like, I was not going to be like my father. There's no way I was going to be like my father. But lo and behold, I got to a day where I was like, I can't do this anymore, and I don't know how to stop. So jumped into recovery, and in that process, there is some work that you must do around resentments towards people. And my father came up, and the person who was helping me said, I need you to write down everything, about your father and what he did. And let me tell you, I was ready for that. I wrote a lot of stuff about my father. And then this person said, okay, so let's look at your part. And I was so angry. I was like, how dare you? How dare you even imply that I had anything to do with this? I was 15 when this man just happily gave me up, signed those papers, and I was ready to just say, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. But I had the gift of desperation and the gift of addiction, and I knew that if I didn't continue on this path, I was going to die. So, this man, I was like, I hate you. You have no idea what you're talking about, but let's continue because I don't want to use or drink anymore. And in the process, I started seeing stuff about myself. And the first thing that came to mind with this person is that my father had been dead for many, 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 many years at this point. That was one too many years, not that many years, but had been dead for a while. And, I was keeping him alive, like he was doing anything to me. And yet, I was still reacting to him, still living those stories in my head. And actually, I was the one abusing me more than he ever abused me. The situations I put myself into, the substances that I put in my body. My father never did anything like that to me. So I was like, okay, still hate the guy, but I was open. I'm open to transforming this thought about him because I was told that if I keep these resentments, that I will go back out and drink and use. So my first thing was I was open to it. And then I started just being open to the process and being open to thinking of things differently, and different pieces started popping in, different ideas. And it finally dawned on me with my father. I don't even know why or how. I do. It was a process. That's the short answer. But I finally realized that my father and I were the same person, like literally the same person. And at this time, when I was in my active addiction, I had a cat. And my cat barely made it out alive. I just was so neglectful to that cat. And not because I didn't love that cat. I loved that cat with all my heart. But I just couldn't be present. And then I thought about my father. And more information, I started being open to hearing more information about my father, because before I don't want to talk to him about him at all. And then I was like, okay, so I'm open to hearing things. And then family started telling me some things about my father and things that I didn't really put two and two together. So my father's story is that he was in the Army, and he came back from the Army. And by this time, he was an alcoholic, or at least in the beginning stages of his disease. So he came back from the Army, still a boy, I would assume, and he met a woman, and that was my mother, who had a 13-year-old daughter, or maybe 12 at the time. And actually, and this was new information to me, that my mother's first husband had committed suicide. So I'm sure that when my father and my mother met, that my mother probably was not in the best place. Also, my mother was an orphan. So she was an orphan. So I'm sure that their relationship was quite interesting, to put it in the least. And also, my mother was an active addict, from what I understand. So my father comes back from the Army, marries this woman with this daughter, and jumps into this life. They have a child, that's me. And all of a sudden, when I'm 3, my mother, his wife, dies. And he's left with a 3-year-old child and a 16-year-old daughter, half-daughter, that I can only imagine what he was going through, and in his disease. I put myself in his shoes, and with my disease, I mean, my sister and I would have been dead because I couldn't take care of even a cat, let alone children. So actually, my father had to deal with his grief, had a 3-year-old child, a daughter that wasn't even his, and then he still had to try to make life work. Okay, all of a sudden, the story started shifting for me. And the next thing was that my father, going to those rehearsals, my father he would always start projects. Again, very much like me, because I start projects. But my father started this project where he started writing these books that he was going to get published about my life in the theater. And I was like, that son of a you-know-what is just trying to make money off me. I was in community players. How much money is he going to make off me? But that's the story I had in my head. But he wrote these books, and he wrote 2 books about me. And I never read them because I said, I will never read a word that man wrote about me. And as my story started shifting about him, all of a sudden one day, I got these out of my storage unit. And my story was, in my head, was that he did not watch me at all in those rehearsals. He was not present. He was drunk. And he made up all that stuff in those books. And I started reading these books that he had crafted. They were diaries of exactly what happened during my rehearsals. I remember those specific times. I remember instances that he wrote about. And I was like, damn. The man was up there and he was watching me. So the story I had in my head was, he didn't care about me. He wasn't watching me. He didn't see me. But actually he saw me, and he wrote 2 books about me. And that's back when you had to type on the typewriters. I mean, it was not computers. So all of a sudden, again, the story started shifting for me. And I was like, wait a minute. There's more to the story. Like the Paul Harvey, the rest of the story, there's more to the story. The last piece of this is that I'm talking to my mentor in my recovery program. And I went down to Bloomington, where I'm from, and I went to a 12-step location and was going to a meeting, and up on the wall there was, it said, in memory of Bob W. I knew my father got sober last couple of years of his life. One of my resentments was he never contacted me, didn't make amends to me. But again, I went to this meeting, and up on the wall I noticed it said Bob W. And I went to one of the old timers. So this Bob W. guy, do you remember what his name was? And they're like, yeah, it was Bob Wentz. He was a huge part of this. He's the reason this place is here. And so all of a sudden I started thinking, wow, because of the work my dad did, I have a place to go to for my recovery. The last piece of this is that I was talking to my mentor, and my mentor said, isn't that interesting? Because here in Chicago, I, for my recovery, helped restart a not-for-profit program for recovering addicts, gay, lesbian, trans addicts. That is an event each year for recovery, like workshops and everything like that. And I had done that early part of my recovery, and my mentor said, it's interesting that you and your father created a lot of wreckage with your addiction. You both did that, and didn't take care of things the way you might have wanted to or could have. But also in recovery, you both started events, started places to help people recover. And it sounds like you and your father are like the same person. So at that point, I was like, wow. So I see him not as this man who gave me up for adoption, but this fellow addict who was just trying to get by in life, and I can totally relate to that. So today, when I think about my father, the first thing I think about, I get this warm feeling in my heart of like, wow, this man, he did a lot. He got through a lot of stuff. Life is not easy, and he got through it. And I'm alive. And yeah, do you know what? We have some bumps and scrapes along the way. But I truly believe that he loved me, and he wanted to be the best he could. And that the reason he gave me up for adoption was because he knew he couldn't do it. He couldn't give me the life that he wanted to give me. So that process of forgiveness for me was about acknowledging the facts. It didn't mean that those nights, when he left me out in the cold when I was a little kid, in the freezing, in my underwear, that doesn't change that. Or he went driving drunk with me and almost killed me. That doesn't change that. But it adds a layer of humanness, as Skip and I were talking about, being human, is that he also, though, was this person that was trying to get by in life, trying to do the next right thing. He just couldn't because of the disease, and also he was in some really extreme situations. So that is my process of been through forgiveness, and really for me, it was the first step was telling how I was feeling. I didn't act as if I had forgiven him. I told exactly what the story was in my head to another person. I said, this is what that son of a what did. And then I had someone who said, well, what if we shifted the story? And I was like, no way, there's no way. I am the victim here. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, what if I did? And I feel like that opened the door, and we talk in Course in Miracles, for the new thought to come in, for whatever power there is to kind of pop in and say, let's get you some more information. And I'll say the information was there, but because of the glasses I was wearing, it wouldn't allow me to see it, because it would have destroyed the story I had that I was a victim of this man. Because information coming in and new thoughts and new perspectives actually changed that. So it was a very long story, but that's what I want to be exploring in the next 8 weeks. I want to have people who are listening to this have the gift of the change of story, that they don't have to live in this chaos and this just the horrible thoughts that we go into that hurt us, that hurt other people, but also hurt us. Because ultimately, as Buddha said, we're the ones holding that hot coal. So that's what I want to be doing this next the next few weeks for this. Skip?
In 15 years that I've known you, I've never heard that part of your story.
Yeah.
About your father getting sober and writing those books and those journals. I've never heard that.
Right?
I never heard that.
Yeah, we usually don't get to tell our full stories, but yeah, that's
really powerful.
Isn't
That's
it
really powerful. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking, I know when Mike passed away, my former partner, late partner, when he passed away, after I had, I packed up all of our stuff because we were separated at the time he died.
Mm.
And so I went and I packed everything up. And when I unpacked in a new place and I moved to Chicago and I moved into a new place, I was unpacking and I found this letter that he had written to me before I had left. And it was, he was sorry that he took away the security of the feeling of home, and that he hoped someday he would be able to give me that home again. That was so wild, moving into my new house and unpacking and seeing all that stuff and seeing that he wrote that.
Mm.
And it was like, I was thinking about that when, I don't want to compare stories, but it reminded me that it was so overwhelming in my grief, but it brought so much joy, and it also felt like an amends. I mean, he was making an amends, but it was...
Yeah.
It was, the things we find when people pass and how much they really, really cared.
Yeah, and I think, and thank you for sharing that. That's makes my heart full. I think in the situation, I had these books that my father had written my entire life. Like, he wrote them when I was like, 11, 12, 13, 14. And I had them in my storage. I'd never looked at them. Like, because of my anger towards him, it would not allow me to look at it. And that's literally like a physical manifestation of once I started to forgive, or once I started to be open to a different story, it allowed me to see beyond that, and as you said, to see the humans. So, because I think in order to be angry at someone, it has to be very black and white. They did this wrong. The gray gets fuzzy. And what was my part in this relationship? And there's a whole thing about my thing, that I withheld my love from this man. I punished him because he didn't love me, so I was not going to love him. And the truth is that I don't think that we can be hurt by someone if we don't have love for them or something like that. And that's a generalization, but the biggest hurts in my life are from the people that I love, and then I'm like, well, I'm not going to love them. They're not going to get any of me. Do you know what I mean? And or I didn't like them or whatever. So
I wonder. It felt like when you went to that place in Bloomington, that recovery club, and you saw that, and how you said he created a place, a space for you to recover. Did you feel like any kind of amends from him in that?
Interesting. I'm not. That's so interesting because I don't. That's so interesting because I just realized I'm not sure if I feel like he owes me an amends, so I didn't think of it through that lens. But I feel like yes. Short answer is yes, and. That's who he was when he was in the, I don't know, connection to spirit, God, whatever you want to say, and when I say God in this program, I'm not saying, I'm not part of religion.
Gift of desperation.
Gift of desperation. But yeah, I don't want anyone to, anyway, I keep saying.
Don't apologize for your higher power.
It's my higher power. But I feel like when, especially as addicts, but my father and I, when we are connected, we create amazing things. And that's what I saw, is that he was, and he let me, I don't know, I found out that he was okay. He did get sober. He was okay. But I'm just going on. To answer your question, yes, it was a huge amends to me. So, and I realized we kind of are at the end of our
That's okay. It was going so well. can't stop there, just keep going.
You can't stop. Though we will have to. And we're going to be talking about this over the weeks to come. And I want to hear your stories. And if anyone is on Facebook, I have a survey out, which has been answered by all these people, like over right now I think I have over 42 people who answered the survey, and I want to know from you, what is forgiveness? And tell me a forgiveness story, and actually I'll repost it so it's at the top of my page. But I want to be exploring this because I will tell you that one of the greatest gifts I've had was the transformation of that story. And so I want other people to be able to have that transformation, whatever that means for you. Again, I don't think any of us have all the information, all the right answers on how to do stuff. But if we support each other, I think we can all get there. And that's the goal, for us all to get there, so we can know that piece of the universe or God or whatever it is. So with that said, thank you for letting me share. Thank you for this opportunity to start this conversation. One of the nice things about being the host of a show, I get to choose the topic, so yay. So if you want to find me outside of this show, there's several places. On Facebook, you can look me up at Bob Kiser. It's Kiser. And in parentheses, it'll say Bobby Wentz, because that was my pre-adopted name. Yes, I was Robert James Wentz Jr., named after my father. So my father and I share many things. Again, Bob Kiser on Facebook. If you're looking for me on Twitter or Instagram, it's Bob Kiser Coach. And also, you can go to my website, which is bobkisercoaching.com. Again, bobkisercoaching.com. Send me a note, private message me, send me an email. I want to continue this conversation because I want to help as many people as possible with their journey. So however I can help, bring it on. So with that said, Skip, it is so good to see you. I've missed you.
You too, buddy.
And
I was trying to play a really cool song.
Yeah?
But I wasn't prepared for that. But
we'll do it next week.
We'll do it next week.
Let's start it.
Because you were talking about doing amazing things, and there's this beautiful song by a friend of mine named Michael Gott. It's called Amazing Things.
Well, we'll have to do amazing things. And actually, I will not be here next week, but the following week we'll be back. So with that said, you've been listening to Perfect Detours, and I'm your host, Bob Kiser. You've been listening to WGHC 98.3 FM Chicago.
LP 98.3 FM Chicago. Listen to our live stream at WGHCradio.org and click on the Listen Live tab. If you would like to sponsor our station, please send an email to Program Director at WGHCradio.org.